after Caleb brings us the lesson will be number 584. Number 584.
All right, well, good evening. Good to see everybody. 584, right?
Yep.
All right. Good evening. Welcome back to our midweek Bible study here at the Salina Church of Christ. Oh, Matt, you spoiled it right there. Everybody saw the first question. Now everybody will know the answer ahead of time. All right. Well, anyway, so we did begin a book of Joshua last week. Got into the first chapter. Really did kind of an overview of the book of Joshua, an overview of those first few verses. Kind of was out of the Bible bold groove. Couldn't remember exactly how I did everything. Ended up actually having to go back and pull stuff up from last year, so I remember how I went about the structure of the class. And so we'll begin with just reading the verses, kind of a short summary. And then I did put some questions together for tonight that you obviously already saw the first one. And we can really split the first chapter of Joshua up into two sections. The first section will be Joshua's interaction with God. And then the second half of that chapter will be Joshua's interaction with the people. And so instead of just reading the entire chapter in one section, we'll break it up into those two separate readings. And so first off, we'll do Joshua 1, verses 1 through 9. It says, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spoke to Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, the children of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon I have given you, as I said to Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites and the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and of good courage, for to this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Have I not commanded you, be strong and of good courage, do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So we covered, really, I suppose, all of that last week, those different verses, a little bit more in depth. We'll just glance through those first 9 tonight. Begins with Joshua being ordered by God to lead the people into the promised land. Just after the death of Moses, we looked at that last week. They're camped there outside of the promised land across the banks of the Jordan. The time for mourning, the death of Moses is over. It's time to get up. It's time to go take possession of the promised land. God reminds Joshua within those verses that he really, in essence, has already given them the land. Tells Joshua that no man will be able to stand before them as they go in and conquer the land. He even describes or defines the boundaries of that land that they're going to go in and conquer. Then God tells Joshua he must, paraphrase, study and keep his word, and if he does, then he'll find success. Within those first 9 verses, we see the phrase, be strong and courageous 3 times. The first is connected to, for to this people you shall divide an inheritance. Joshua is going to need to be strong and courageous on many different levels. He'll need the strength and courage to lead the people in the taking possession of the land, the conquering of the land. He may even need strength and courage in dividing that land as an inheritance among all of those different people. So many things that he'll need to be strong and courageous in regards to. And God tells him here that in that process of going and taking that land, this is an area that you're going to need strength and courage. But God doesn't just leave him with that. Here's a hard task. You're going to have to really step up in order to be able to do it. He doesn't just give us that challenge without giving us support. And so that's connected to the previous verses where he tells him, I will be with you just as I was with Moses. And so he's going to offer that support, going to offer that guidance. That's the first time that he tells him to be strong and courageous. The second one is in regards to his observing to do all that is in the law. He had to keep himself right, which involved learning what is right, meditating upon the Word of God, speaking, sharing the Word of God, and living it out himself. And so the second one is in regards to his faithfulness, and really the third one is in regards to his faithfulness as well. It's just a reminder to him after he tells him about his need to be faithful, be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid, don't be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So there's that first interaction between God and Joshua, in which he receives his marching orders, and then is reminded by God multiple times that you just need to be strong. You just need to be willing to do this, and I've got your back. I'm going to be with you the entire time. The next half of the chapter, we're going to call it half, is Joshua's interaction with the people. And so Joshua gets the orders from God that they're about to go into the promised land, and now it's Joshua's duty to begin that process. And so picking back up then, Joshua chapter 1, verse number 10. Says, Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, Pass through the camp and command the people, saying, Prepare provisions for yourselves, for within 3 days you will cross over this Jordan, to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess. And to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh, Joshua spoke, saying, Remember the word which Moses the servant of the Lord commanded you, saying, The Lord your God is giving you rest, and giving you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your livestock shall remain in the land which Moses gave you on this side of the Jordan. But you shall pass before your brethren armed, all your mighty men of valor, and help them, until the Lord has given your brethren rest, as he gave you. And they also have taken possession of the land which the Lord your God is giving them. Then you shall return to the land of your possession, and enjoy it, which Moses, the Lord's servant, gave you on this side of the Jordan towards the sunrise. So they answered Joshua, saying, All that you command us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we heeded Moses in all things, so we will heed you. Only the Lord your God will be with you, as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your command and does not heed your words, and all that you command him shall be put to death. Only be strong and of good courage. So Joshua gets the orders himself, and then begins to carry them out. We looked at all those different lessons on leadership. One of the things that good leaders need to learn how to do is delegate. So that's one of the first things that Joshua does. We break up the second half of this chapter really into three different sections. One is Joshua initiating the actions. One is Joshua having a conversation with a certain portion of the people, and then the third is those people responding back to him. And so he begins initiating action by having this conversation with the leaders. It says that the officers of the people, I suppose, how many people are we talking about here in the children of Israel?
Million?
Perhaps millions. I don't know. As far as this point in history is concerned, different points of the Exodus leading up to this, especially just right after Egypt, then we might guess in the 2.5 million people range, even perhaps. And so there's this great multitude of people, this whole generation of people who has raised out during these wandering years. But all these people, millions perhaps, people. What kind of microphone system do they have back then? Shout as loud as you can. Maybe they have a megaphone. Which one of y'all was hollering in a megaphone the other night? Was that you just talking about that? Barking in a megaphone?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, barking in a megaphone makes your bark louder at a football game. You know, maybe they had something like that. But it probably wasn't the best idea to try to address 2.5 million people at once. And Joshua knew that. I'm sure that there were certain occasions where, you know, it mentions the whole congregation of Israel. There were certainly times when all of the people would come together, and Moses or Joshua, whoever it may be addressing the people, would address the entire congregation. I'm sure there were times that took place, but it's not the easiest way to go about it. The easiest way to go about it is to tell those people who are in charge, and then let them tell the people who are underneath them, and then let them tell the people who are underneath them. And of course, one of the benefits of that, Joshua goes and he tells these people that they need to be ready, because what? What are they going to do? Pass over the Jordan. What's their time frame? 3 days. I view this just as far as working out all those details. Not that I'm a work out all the details kind of guy, but that's the first thing that pops into my head is that, well, if we get told we have to be here doing this in 3 days, I have stuff that I need to get ready. And so each of these different officers, each of these different leaders, they might have different things that they know they need to get done as far as this group of people is concerned. They have to be prepared for the water crossing. They have to have their food and water, their provisions themselves. They have to have all the equipment that they need to be able to go across the river. Then they need all the equipment organized and put together and battle ready to go in and conquer the land. And so Joshua initiates all of that action by just getting with these different leaders and having them then share the word to all the people. All right, so we have the multitude of people, the congregation of Israel, who are all preparing to go over the Jordan. But then we have these other 2.5 tribes that we begin to read about. The tribes of Reuben, Gad, and then half the tribe of Manasseh. And since we've been on the Sunday school catch-up kind of mindset, this is kind of one of those, and as we all know, moments that maybe we don't all know. What's the deal with these 2.5 tribes? Anybody give me like a real quick summary?
They chose to stay in the land on that side of the river, and therefore their families would stay, but the warriors would go on across the Jordan as well with the rest of the group.
Okay.
I'm assuming the families of those warriors would stay on that side.
All right, so there's at least the first half of that was the quick summary aspect of it. They didn't want to go across the river. They of course have left Egypt, and they're all looking forward to this promised land. They're looking for some land of their possession, and that's what they want. They want a land where they can be their own people. I'll turn back over to Numbers chapter 32. In Numbers chapter 32, verse number 1, it says, "Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of livestock. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that indeed the region was a place for livestock, the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spoke to Moses, to Eleazar the priest, and to the leaders of the congregation, saying," they come, they're traveling through towards the promised land, but they are a people who are known for livestock, known for their cattle and so forth. And so they're coming through and they see this land it's perfect for people who are into the types of things that we are into. And so in essence, they don't want to go on into the promised land. They just want to be able to settle that land right there where they are. Numbers, I guess I'll skip on over and kind of read. They go to Moses, tell him that's what they would like to do. Beginning then in verse number 18. All right, but we ourselves will be armed, verse number 17, until we have brought them to their place, and little ones will dwell in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. They tell Moses, we will not return to our homes until every one of the children of Israel has received his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has fallen to us on this eastern side of the Jordan. Then Moses said to them, if you do this thing, if you arm yourselves before the Lord for the war, and all your armed men cross over the Jordan before the Lord until he has driven out all the enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before the Lord, then afterward you may return and be blameless before the Lord and before Israel, and this land shall be your possession before the Lord. And so this is something that they've known is going to happen this entire time. They didn't want to go over into the promised land, but what's going to have to take place in the Canaan land? When they cross the Jordan, what are they going to have to engage in? Warfare. Is it fair for me, if all of us are going to go and we're going to go take this land over here, but between here and there I see Knob Creek, I think, I want to just live on Knob Creek. I don't want to go conquer Moss. But we're all going to go conquer Moss together. You know, it's not really fair, is it, for me to just take this land that we've conquered on our way to and not participate in that battle. So they make this arrangement, they make this deal that they're going to join in that fight. However long the fight is, well, whatever needs to be done, you know, we will join in that process. We just want to remain here on the other side of the river. Moses makes that agreement with them. And then one of my favorite lines in the Bible, Moses ends that by saying, but if you do not do so, behold, you have sinned, and be sure your sin will find you out. You know, that one, and behold, David, you are the man. That's like the two of the best one-liners in the Bible. That behold, your sin will find you out. So this is the testing period, or the testing time for that promise that was made all of those years ago. So Joshua calls the tribes of Reuben and Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh was added into that as well. They are the people who aren't going to go in and take possession of any of the land on the other side of the river, because they've already received a possession. So Joshua gets the leaders. I say the leaders, you know, the first group of people that Joshua addresses is called the officers of the people, and then they are to disperse the news. When Joshua addresses these three tribes, it doesn't say the leaders specifically. He could have gone about that same process and just got the heads of these households, these tribes, to come and reminded them of these things. Or it could be the case that he got all these 2.5 tribes, all the people, all the men of war together and reminded all of them. Remember, this is what you said you were going to do. This was the deal that you made with God, and if you don't do it, then you backed out of a covenant with God. That your women, children, livestock, you know, all those things, that they get to stay back in your home place, but all of your warriors have to go with us and fight this battle until we have the land conquered. And then the last portion of that chapter are those people responding back to Joshua. In essence, telling him that we're going to respect your authority, just as we did Moses, that we will go wherever you say to go. They tell him that anybody who rebels against him and doesn't recognize him as the ordained by God leader of that group of people, you know, kind of just remember the rebellion of Korah not too long ago. Maybe that's fresh on their minds. Anybody who doesn't recognize you, Joshua, as the new ordained leader will be put to death. And I think it's a pretty wonderful place where the chapter ends, if you put yourself in Joshua's shoes. You know, it all begins with God, you know, calling him to this. Gotta be scary what they're going into the Canaan land, everything that they're going to have to do. It's scary, it's dangerous. God calls you to do that, but then begins right off the back by just reminding you that He is with you multiple times. When you then take the news to the people, you tell the people what the plan is, and they just jump right on board. And then at the end, you know, they leave it off by reminding you. Don't forget, Joshua, don't forget, leader, that God is with you. And so certainly, you know, throughout these years that we're going to be looking at, then that strength and that courage, it comes not only from God, but it comes from the other people that are around him. You know, the encouragement that exists there as well. All right, anybody have anything else they want to add before we get into some questions? No?
I'm assuming the book of the law that he's talking about is the Pentateuch.
Yeah, we would assume so. Did we touch on that? Were you here last week? I think we touched on that just a little bit last week because, you know, at that point, I mentioned that, you know, he has the first original document, you know, of all those things that Moses had, and that's really all that he has. You know, doesn't have any of that other stuff that or newer stuff, newer information that we have. But yeah, all of that up to that point, you know, up to the ending of Deuteronomy, he would have had all that information. All right. Anybody have anything else? If not, I'm going to get into these questions, and I don't have them written down, so I hope everything pops up there the way it's supposed to. Oh, except I can't read the first part of it. It's cut off. All right, the people, they'll be able to know what it says. The people addressed in verse number 12. I skipped back and forth all throughout the chapter. So the people addressed in verse number 12. Everybody shut your Bibles too. This is know the answer time, not look up the answer time. All right, the people addressed in verse number 12 were told to recall the words whom I can't read it. The people addressed in verse number 12 were told to recall the words whom had commanded them. Who commanded them the words? A. Moses is the correct answer. Matt, this is not going to work good for me up here.
Go ahead.
Oh, you're doing, so it wasn't my fault. That's good. All right. Are you doing something again? All right. What great river is mentioned in Joshua chapter 1, verse 4? Is it A, the Nile, B, the Euphrates, or C, the Pishon? It is B, the Euphrates. When the people in verses 12 through 18 had completed their duty, they could return back home and blank. A, reclaim it, B, cultivate it, or C, enjoy it. Enjoy it. They were told that they could go back home. This is those 2.5 tribes. Once they're done, you go back home and enjoy it, what you have. What does it say before 10? 1:10. From chapter 1, verse 10. Then Joshua commanded the blank of the people. A, fathers, B, officers, or C, elders. It is B, officers. What two things had God given the tribes in verse number 13? A, rest and land. B, rest and peace, or C, land and peace. Who said A? Who said B? Who said C? Who said D? All right. It is A, rest and land. He had given them rest and he had given them land at that point. the land which the three tribes possessed in verse 15 was which direction from the Jordan? A, towards the sunset, B, towards the sunrise, or C, towards the great sea down to the sun? We got all three answers then. B, A, B, all right, we'll have to take a vote again. Who says A, towards the sun? B, towards the sunrise?
B.
Or C, towards the great sea down to the sun? All right, so C was from a different section of land. That was in the first one. It was telling them where they were going to go into the promised land was C. So that was in there, just not here. The sunrise it was where they were talking about the three tribes. All right. God told Joshua in verse 8 that the book of the law should not depart from his what? A, mouth, B, heart, C, hand. B, heart. Anybody have a different answer? A, mouth. Now, does it almost seem a strange thing to say that the book of the law shall not depart from your mouth? Like, don't say it, don't teach it. But what's meant by that?
Don't stop.
Don't leave.
Don't stop. That it's supposed to be what's always on your mouth. It's not supposed to depart from your mouth. All right. In Joshua chapter 1 verse 11, the people were told that in how many days they would cross the Jordan? A, 3, B, 7, or C, 10? A, in 3 days. Verse 1 refers to Joshua as the son of Nun, and what else? A, a chosen leader, B, Moses' successor, or C, Moses' assistant? Was C, Moses' assistant. The three tribes responded to Joshua in verse 16 and said they would go wherever he blanked them. A, sent them, B, led them, or C, showed them. It was A, sent. Alright, in verse number 14, the warriors from the three tribes were told to go armed before their brethren and blank them. A, encourage them, B, lead them, or C, help them. It was C, help them. Joshua chapter 1 verse 3 says, everywhere blank he had given them. His eyes could see, that he'd given him everywhere his eyes could see, everywhere the soles of his foot would tread, or C, everywhere he sent men into battle. B, everywhere the soles of his foot would tread, he had given them. From Joshua 1 verse 6, God tells Joshua he will divide, that should have been a capital H. God tells Joshua he will divide the land as an inheritance to A, this people, B, this nation, C, this tribe. That is not supposed to be capitalized because Joshua's the one doing the dividing. A, to this people, B, to this nation, C, to this tribe. A, we got a couple A's, so we're going to go with that. All right. Verse number 18, what was going to happen to anyone who rebelled against Joshua? A, they would be stoned, B, they would be put to death, or C, they would be cast out from the camp. It was B, put to death. In verse number 12, Joshua addressed the Reubenites, Gadites, and half the tribe of whom? A, Dan, B, Benjamin, or C, Manasseh? C, Manasseh. In verses 14 and 15, the warriors were told to help their brethren until the Lord gives them what? A, their inheritance, B, their land, or C, rest. It was rest. Who is called a servant of the Lord in verse number 1, and then my servant in verse number 2? Is it Joshua, B, Moses, or C, Joseph? Was B, Moses, and that's all of what I have. So I guess we're about 5 minutes short. I didn't remember exactly how many questions and stuff we needed to have. Anybody have anything else they want to add? No, we want a little side point. I thought of a side point earlier, and I was already finished. But you know, there within that first chapter, and this is really just a more of a thinking, more than a this is what the doctrine says application type point, just a thinking type point. Has anybody ever really wanted to know what God wanted them to do with their lives? Have you ever just said, you know, maybe there's some major decision that's facing you in your life, and maybe you thought, which one of these is God really wanting me to do? Maybe you felt like you knew what He really wanted to do, but then there were all these worries, the anxiety that might accompany that. You know, going back to the first chapter of Joshua, he's got this daunting task ahead of him. But just that assurance that God has your back is the basis for his going forward with this thing. You know, maybe we might need to be more like that, and just trusting, you know, if God says that He'll provide for us when we try to do His will, maybe we should be more like that and quit worrying about all those other very real hazards and potentials that could be in our way. You know, I think Joshua is a great example of that. Anybody have anything else you want to add? If not, we'll just wait for them to come in. All right, thank you. there anybody behind you, Danny? Go Steve. Steve.
A few more.
Is that it, Steve? All right, if y'all want to go ahead and turn to number 584. They'll be seeing that in just a moment, 584. So I had my lesson Sunday morning, put some focus on fathers, put some focus on husbands, and of course included the wives submit to your husbands verse in there as well. You know, both people in those relationships need to know how to behave. And after that lesson, oftentimes people come up and they'll have something positive to say or something in regards to the sermon. And I have to say that Sunday morning, a lady came up and probably said one of the sweetest things that I've ever heard anybody say. And so, no, it wasn't, Miss Tammy, it wasn't you. You're shaking your head, no. It wasn't her. But I want to share this thought with you because not only does it apply to that husband-wife marriage relationship, but also to the relationship that one is symbolic of, our relationship with Christ, with whom we all must submit as Christians. That word submit is kind of hard for us to swallow sometimes. Sometimes we might visualize it through, submission. We might visualize, some quivering dog at the hand of an abusive owner. We might picture someone who's just been defeated, like the breaking of a horse. Picture somebody whose will has just been broken. Oftentimes we picture this idea of submit with a negative connotation. But the Greek word that we find, although there certainly are times when we must bow, there are certainly times when we must tremble in reverence before the wrath of God and the power of God, such as we might do whenever we realize and recognize our need to obey the gospel. But this word that's transmitted, submit, as in the submission of a wife, and then compared to our submission to Christ, as Christians, is more about the idea of letting go. Letting go of control yourself and allowing God to have control. Of a wife letting go of control herself and trusting her husband to lead that home. That's a good understanding of that word submit. That I can let go, that I can allow you to lead, and I will follow your lead because I'll trust you. Is that attitude of submitting to Christ. And so she said, people just don't understand how easy it is to submit when you feel so cherished. And I thought that was just the sweet husband standing right there beside her. And I thought that's just the sweetest thing that perhaps I've ever heard. And we realize just how much he cares for us. We realize just how much he's done for us. It shouldn't be that difficult for us to let go and submit to his will. It may be the case this evening that you need to respond. If so, please come as we stand and sing.
Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. See on the portals, he's waiting and watching, watching for you and for me. Come home, come home. First, let me say how much we appreciate everyone being out this evening. And if we have visitors, we're glad you're here and hope you'll come back and be with us at every opportunity. We'll be back on Sunday morning at 9 for Bible study and then worship at 10. And hope everyone will be back. Our holiday meal this year will be on December the 8th. That's Sunday evening, and it'll be we'll have devotional at 5 o'clock, and then we'll have a meal after that. So that'll be on December the 8th. That won't be that far away. Those on our prayer list, David said that Linda had some therapy today, some tightening up the procedure, and so it worked her pretty good. So she's home, a little bit sore today. Of course, remember Butch as he continues to heal from his surgery, as well as Todd Upton and his duration of work treatment down in Nashville. And Danny Williams is home now after having a pacemaker. Patricia Crabtree, she had a hip replaced, hip and femur, or something like that, from what I understand. So it wasn't, but we think that's what took place. Anyway, I imagine she's still down there. Yeah. So keep her in our prayers too. And we are sorry to announce the passing of Lola Jean Dillon, as we know her, and graveside services for her were Monday. And I think that's all that I have. See, Peyton was going to do our prayer. Jason would do closing prayer. Appreciate that. Is there anything else that needs to be mentioned or any corrections to what I said? Then our closing song. Oh, we had 60 this evening. Again, appreciate the presence of everyone. Our closing song will be number 924. Number 924. If you'd like to stand, please do so. I am mine no more. I am mine no more. I've been bought with blood, and I am mine no more. Jesus is my Lord. Jesus is my Lord, and He rules my life, and Jesus is my Lord. He will come again. He will come again, and He'll take me home. Yes, He will come again.
Bow with me. Father in heaven, thank you for this beautiful day you've given us, Father. Thank you for the health that enables us all to be here tonight. And we ask you please be with all the weak and sick and all the ones Jerry mentioned here tonight, Father. All the families who lost loved ones. Thank you so much for all we have, and may we not take it for granted. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Jason, up there, get going with the mansion down there? Yeah. How are you? That's up for a day. Yeah, great.